Let me ask you this. Have you ever wanted to live in the world of a book you read? Have you ever wanted to look between the lines and see the world outside reality? Reading is one thing, but seeing is believing. It would be like playing a first-person visual novel. Exciting, isn't it? Well, you're in luck. Paradise Killer offers exactly this and much more on this episode of VladePosting. Well, first of all, I got to say, wow, looks like these guys just invented a new genre. Open world visual novel detective mystery? Count me fucking in. Let's see what this game has to offer. Giant world for you to discover? Check. Philosophical conundrums? Check. Ace Attorney style investigation? Double check. Amazing citypop soundtrack coupled with glitchy graphics? Checkaroo. Crazy murder mystery? You better believe that's a check. Great cast of characters? Paging doctor? Check. And many more things that I'm afraid to count. But as you can see, this game has lots of things it can hook you with. Just give it a chance if you're into visual novels or murder mysteries. Now let's talk about the premise. It's a small-scale open-world game that is closer to Danganronpa and Ace Attorney than it cares to admit. You play as detective called Lady Love Dies, and get used to fancy names and wait until you meet Crimson Acid or Dr. Doom Jazz. Your character was bound in exile for a crime you committed many eons ago. 3 million days ago, if I'm being accurate. But now her help is invaluable and she's called from her semi-literal slumber. There has been a crime to end all crimes, namely council murder. As in, the entire government just got whacked. And it falls onto you to find the guilty party by any means possible. You quickly pick up that you're not on planet Earth and this isn't a normal world. Instead, this is a pocket dimension called Island Sequence 24. As the name implies, this is the 24th attempt by a group called Syndicate to create a perfect world where they can worship dead alien gods. Islands are created by architects with one purpose in mind: to achieve absolute paradise where the Syndicate can worship their gods. And they do so via wholesale human sacrifice. They have herds of innocent people whom they kidnap to enslave them as ordinary workers or citizens of the island and ritualistically murder them afterwards. Unfortunately, 24 attempts later and their design still suffers from different defects, be it demonic possessions or design imperfections, etc. The fact that our main character is friends with these crazy bastards should be alarming, but you'll get into your role fairly quickly. Still with me? Good. So, the Syndicate is a group of immortal people who excel at different things: fighting, making good cocktails, medicine, governing, and amongst them is you, who is called an investigation freak. Syndicate is ruled by the Council, which helps create new island sequences and worship gods properly. As I said, an island sequence is a pocket dimension, and it is created as such because the Syndicate is outlawed in the real world, because human sacrifice and worshipping alien gods is considered not cool in our day and age. And so, 3 gorillion days ago you were exiled because you endangered paradise on Island Sequence 13, where you came under the influence of a malicious god called Damned Harmony, which brought great disaster on the island. The council disbanded your investigation unit that you were a chief of and sent you to idle lands to rot alone without alcohol or pornography. You had a husband who, of course, divorced your ass after the events of the deception, and he and most of the Syndicate went on to Island Sequence 25. You see, Island 24 was about to get the axe, so only the skeleton crew along with the council remained on the island. This is when the crime to end all crimes occurred. The entire council is murdered, and the judge, who is more supernatural entity than a human now, calls you from idle lands and tasks you to find the culprit, to execute him, her, or they if it's a group of people. That's the premise, ladies and gentlemen, and let me tell you, playing Paradise Killer is way more engaging than reading a book. The lore is simply one of a kind, the world building is stellar, and the cast of characters can easily be taken from detective novels because they're fleshed out extremely well. Funny thing, as soon as you are given the freedom of movement, you can murder the suspects if you think they're guilty. Just indiscriminately shoot them in the fucking head. Just like that. But we're not here to do that, are we? We're here to unravel the crazy murder mystery and potentially sleep with the goat-headed lady, right?
Oh, yes.
Where to begin? Well, first of all, the judge tells you that you need to bring him the ultimate evidence to prove somebody's guilt. Alright, we're off to find incriminating pieces of evidence coming right up. Evidence is gathered in two ways: finding the stuff while exploring the world and in conversations. And if conversations are handled in a streamlined way a la Danganronpa, finding stuff will prove to be more difficult for one specific reason. It's a pixel hunt in an open world game. This is almost a literal case of finding a needle in a haystack, because let me tell you, very important pieces of evidence are hidden in very, I should say, unorthodox places where you wouldn't have a reason to investigate closely at all. And that is something that hampers the game a lot. You have to be extremely patient with Paradise Killer, because you will be conducting sweeps and going back and forth almost all the time, because sometimes you're told that a piece of evidence is located somewhere, but the clue is so general you'll have to take laps around the area to find exactly what you need. However, to make the search at least somewhat bearable, the world is filled with collectibles that are called relics and mementos. They give you information about the lore and world building. But that's just a flavor text. It gives you absolutely nothing of value if you don't specifically want to learn about the world. Which I did, and that's why the search wasn't as painful as it could be for me. But on the other hand, this flavor text gives you plenty of time to ponder on a question that pops in your mind every so often. Is paradise worth saving? How about now? And now? And so on. I enjoyed reading all the text about this world, because Paradise Killer has one of the best lore setting ever created in a video game form. I'm not kidding, Elden Ring has nothing on this bad boy. One surprise similarity between Elden Ring and Paradise Killer is that their worlds are almost empty. The slaves and citizens were slaughtered as per the council regulation. The island you explore has no people, almost no interactable objects, nothing is left. This paradise is large, but empty. And that really is something the game can't overcome even with its flawless vaporwave style and stellar citypop soundtrack. Ultimately, you're engaged in a back and forth between spacious but empty locations, and sometimes you engage in a dialogue with 10 characters that still haven't left the island. And as Sartre famously said, hell is other people. Other people indeed, as the game's world building gives way to talking to our suspects to establish alibi, gather evidence, or accuse them, even if it's something trivial. You fight tooth and nail to establish your role of investigator, and you will have to piece the evidence together to establish who was where at a specific time. I greatly enjoyed doing so, it made me feel smart for a change. Thank you, Paradise Killer. Now I can call my mom and tell her I'm not a complete failure. But failure there is, as the game plays it fast and loose at the end of the game, during the trial section. The way how Ace Attorney works is that you discover stuff during the trial section. But here you have all the damning evidence and you just blast away the fool that you think is the ultimate criminal. That's deflating the tension, to say the least. The ending is, therefore, in my opinion, very subpar. Because you already know everything, you already confronted everyone and presented them with all the evidence. There is no mystery at the end. There is no eureka moment throughout the entire game. There are a couple of twists in the game, but they feel so out of place that you don't feel all that satisfied that you resolved them. But I digress. Another thing I believe I should mention is that even though you do some thinking in the game, Paradise Killer is not a detective game. You play as a detective, but you barely do any of the detective work at all. The game is a visual novel, through and through. The answer to the mystery is found by doing exactly two things: finding all the evidence on the island and exhausting every dialogue option possible. That's it. That's what it takes to win in Paradise Killer. It's an impressive landmass of a game, and you will benefit greatly if you play it in short bursts. Otherwise it gets too repetitive, in my opinion. It is the first game I'm going to use the word overwritten instead of underwritten. The game wants to offer you so much, but it can't due to limitations of incompatible themes. I see the ambition, I see the intention, but some things are just not working together, such as pixel hunt in an open world game. Let's talk about audio and graphics. You know, I never received a Florida postcard in my entire life, but I'll just go ahead and say that the game looks exactly like that. Garish, colorful, vibrant, and chill, like a vacation in Hawaii. The style is unique, absolutely, and if I had to use the words to describe it, I'd say it's an eldritch vaporwave game. Imagine that. But it's exactly like that, with 7-Elevens with neon signs and residential blocks on one hand, and tentacles and altars to alien gods on the other. The environmental graphics look cheap, but I think that's the developer's intention. Everything looks and feels a little glitchy. As in, we need to make this game look like full motion video games from the 90s. And they nailed it. The architecture is inspired by, or at least I think so, by 80s Japanese urban styled apartments. Some retro here and there, sprinkled with occult themes of alien worship. The art here is dystopian at times. You see the religious figures everywhere, and you're reminded that people who lived here were under the yoke of the Syndicate. Character graphics are Danganronpa style of 2D still images laid over the 3D world. And as you can imagine, art is another way of showing how this world really is functioning. Aside from info dumps, you get a lot of information simply by looking at things, because this world is fairly detailed. Music that you hear in the game is diegetic, as in occurring within the context of the story and able to be heard by the characters. A good example of this would be the movie Baby Driver. There are loudspeakers everywhere and they blast this synthwave citypop soundtrack 24/7. At first I thought it was wildly out of place, but after a couple of hours I couldn't help but tap my foot to the music. My relationship with the soundtrack has been stellar. I now listen to it in my daily music consumption. And for this video, I didn't use any other song but the ones that are in the game's soundtrack. If you have Spotify, you're in luck, because after spending 15 to 20 hours in this game, you won't have enough of this majestic fusion of synthwave and jazz. So just follow my lead and add it to your playlist. You won't be disappointed. It's now easily in my top 6 video game soundtracks. And folks, I repeat, this is the first instance of VladePosting video where I use only the game's soundtrack as my background music, and that should tell you how much I enjoy it. However, there is a place of audio disappointment in this game, and that is voice work. It's not present. No, wait, it's there, but it's very bare bones. When you converse with someone, they may, emphasis on may, say something, which is cool, but more often than not, the game is filled with random character interjections. It can become super annoying, because recorded dialogue is severely limited. Couple of phrases per character at best, but after that, it's just you and your gal Lady Love Dice trying to quip her way out of the plastic bag. And into the trash it goes. Alright, time to finish this ramble, don't you think? What we have here is an open-world adventure in an eccentric world filled with an astounding amount of charm. Free-form murder investigation may sound a little bit tad over the top, but hear me out. The absurd setting the game finds itself at serves as an excellent backdrop of an investigation process. Aliens, gods, superpowers, transmutations, human sacrifice, demons, walking, talking skeletons that tend bar. All of this is infinitely way more interesting to internalize than your run-of-the-mill whodunit. Sure, you'll be walking in circles, but every detective knows that their job requires serious legwork to solve a case. Schemes, betrayals, conspiracies, deceptions are frequent guests on Island Sequence 24. It may very well be the first instance of a non-linear investigation video game. You can end it right at the start if you so desire. Your agency is supreme. But if you decide to bust through the smoke and mirrors of this island, you will have to be patient and enjoy your time in the dying paradise. It is so wonderfully bleak. You can very well imagine yourself walking through real ghost towns of our world like Pripyat or Centralia. Everything looks and sounds vibrant, but you know that this island is built on the bones of kidnapped people and they're all long dead. And your character supports this regime, which is a terrifying thought. But regardless of that, you're an investigation machine, and you are given several threats to pursue at the start. Later, they converge in a spectacular fashion, but having an ability to explore whatever you like and then cross-examine your findings feels incredibly liberating. But at the same time, it can be too much. The island's big and contains many secrets, and if you desire to collect all the relics, well, good luck to you and your therapist, I guess, because I haven't seen this much fluff since Horizon Forbidden West, and I don't mean that as a good example of environmental storytelling. It does feel like a hopeless undertaking, because sometimes they're hidden like a motherfucker. So I feel if you let yourself be absorbed with collectibles, you will inevitably burn out of the game and just drop it. So don't bother, it's healthier that way. You know, another game it reminded me of was Outer Wilds. Yeah, not Outer Worlds, Outer Wilds. I always confuse the two. It really is alike in its intention to let the player go and do their own thing. It respects the player and gives them a very nice sandbox to play in. Despite all its flaws, this game has been one of the most memorable experiences I've had with video games this decade. A mix of 80s citypop and vaporwave soundtrack makes everything go in better. Writing is top-notch, characters are memorable, the world building is funky with dystopian occult notes, with a hit-or-miss open world. As Aristotle said, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So one or two elements that aren't a great fit doesn't necessarily mean the game is bad. It's good. Really good. It's just not what you expect. And that's the right attitude to approach Paradise Killer. Thanks for watching, folks. It's been fun making videos for you. I'll see you in the perfect 25.